Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Alina Weisskopf, filling in for Steve Lance tonight. An update about the attack on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband. Officials have confirmed that the suspect is an illegal immigrant. The Department of Homeland Security said the alleged attacker, David DePape, is a Canadian national, and that Immigration and Customs Enforcement has lodged an immigration detainer on him. Immigration detainers are meant to prevent state or local officials from releasing suspects who are illegal immigrants. And an attorney for DePape's former girlfriend told the Epoch Times what they know about DePape. The attorney said DePape tends to believe conspiracy theories in general, whether they're left-wing or right-wing, and that theories about DePape being a right-wing extremist seem to be off base. The attorney and DePape's neighbor also said DePape appeared to be homeless and has serious mental issues. A man arrested for driving through a Pentagon checkpoint last Friday said he hates America and was trying to kill people. That's a direct quote, according to court documents. The man is a 36-year-old Ethiopian national. He was apprehended after ramming his SUV through the arm at a Pentagon checkpoint and speeding his vehicle toward officers. He's a resident of Falls Church, Virginia, and has entered the U.S. on a visa. However, his current immigration status is unclear. He's currently detained by court order of a Virginia judge. The order states that he, quote, poses an ongoing danger to the community by clear and convincing evidence. Yuma, Arizona. This is a city located along the southwest border and that's seen a 170% increase in illegal immigration over the past year. I sat down with the mayor of the city to find out how they're coping with this surge. Mayor Nichols calls on Congress to update immigration laws that have been on the books since the 1980s, and he calls on the Biden administration to send a stronger public message to discourage economic migrants from showing up at their border. Here's our discussion. Mayor Nichols, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. I want to talk about the illegal immigration issue here. You're right on the border state. Has this impacted you over the past couple of years at all? Impacted your city?
It has impacted us. We're right on the border, and we're actually very engaged with the communities across the border. We do a lot of great things together, but having a porous border actually impacts both sides very negatively. When you have 300,000 people coming through this area just in this last fiscal year, that's 3 times the size of my city. And so by having that kind of influx, it affects like our healthcare system. Now we have one hospital here, and that hospital has experienced quite a bit of an impact. In the last 6 months, they've had $20 million of unreimbursed expenses related to immigrant care from the neonatal services, just through COVID services and all those things together. Well, those funds get distributed somehow, and so that impacts the costs of the citizens here when they go to use the hospital, as well as some of the capacity of the hospital gets used up. So those are big concerns for us from the healthcare side.
Would you think that the federal government should be reimbursing your local hospital? It
is definitely a federal issue. Immigration's not a local issue, otherwise we would be able to pass laws to address that. But no, it's definitely a federal issue, and the federal government needs to make sure they're taking care of all those kind of expenses.
Do you feel like your city has been able to adapt to the situation pretty efficiently? I mean, it seems like you guys have it more or less under control. And also your thoughts on the shipping containers. The governor has taken some action here to help fill in some of those gaps.
Well, the shipping containers are a perfect example of how you try to protect a community. There was a gap. The majority of the people, the 300,000 people, were coming through those gaps. So by plugging that gap, it didn't prevent them from coming. It just reallocated them to a different area, but it focused the resource where the resource need would be, but it also blocked the direct path into some private properties that were having a lot of issues, into the community, and really kind of focused it. So we have not had those big impacts, thankfully, but we're just days away from having that issue. In December of last year, we had 3 days of over 1,500 people a day coming through, and that exceeded the capacity that Border Patrol had and the whole system had. And so people were not being picked up, and there were hundreds of people waiting along the border every day. And their families, they're hungry, so they start moving through the community. And so when they started doing that, they were showing up at our homeless shelter, at our police station, at our fire department, looking for resources, understandably. That's not a sustainable situation. If we get there, and that could happen in, again, a very, very short period of time, that'll be a bigger problem if it persists.
What would you say to those who may see securing the border and building the border wall here in Arizona as a negative thing and as something that we shouldn't do because it's dividing people or causing humanitarian crisis overseas? What would you say to them?
Well, I think they need to understand a little bit differently that what happens between the ports of entries isn't good for any country. It isn't good for any person. The people and the stories we hear from those people who cross the border, the rape, the exploitation, the theft, the abuse, that's not something as a country that we support. However, by not having physical barriers and not making immigration, discouraging illegal immigration and making the legal immigration process more efficient and better, we only encourage that. I don't know anywhere in this country where anyone would support those activities, much less if they were happening in another country. We would take very verbal and maybe even financial positions against that happening. But because of this rhetoric that we hear about a wall separating people, there's a border that separates people. The wall is just part of the defense of that border. That rhetoric is what's preventing true change and true effective humanitarian efforts to help the people who truly need the help.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What's the president doing in the last days before midterms? And why is Biden campaigning in a blue state like New Mexico? NTD's Iris Tao brings us more from the White House.
With just 5 days to go until Election Day, Biden kicking off a busy campaign swing. Today in New Mexico, Biden rallies with Democrats and talks about student loan forgiveness.
And folks, despite what Republican officials say, we can afford the student loan program.
What's notable, though, is that New Mexico is typically a blue stronghold. And after this stop, Biden's spending tonight and part of Friday in California, also solidly blue. The question is, with just days before the midterms, why is Biden stumping in these blue states while notably skipping battleground states like Arizona and Nevada? An anonymous Democratic official told the Associated Press that the decision was made to send Biden to places he easily won in 2020. And the official said that's in part because Democratic candidates in such places are actually seeing their races tighten in the final stretch of the campaign. But some are questioning if this also has to do with Biden's low approval ratings, which could make him hurt some Democrats rather than helping them. Biden himself nodded at this fact while campaigning for a Democratic senator in August.
He's up for re-election this year. And I told him, I'll come campaign for him or against him, whichever will help the most.
But Biden's deputy chief of staff on Wednesday denied the idea, saying in an interview that she has never had to tell her boss that the candidate doesn't want him to come. And after his New Mexico and California trips this week, Biden's heading to Pennsylvania on Saturday and Blue, Maryland on Monday. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
And more people across the U.S. are waiting longer to purchase a place to live. The number of first-time homebuyers fell to an all-time low of 26%. That's according to the National Association of Realtors' 2022 report of all home sales. The average age for first-time homebuyers has gone up to 36. That's 3 years older than the year before. Researchers say the factors impacting this trend are higher home prices, escalating interest rates, and a drop in consumer income. Freddie Mac reports the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage was 6.95% for last week. Mortgage rates have more than doubled since the start of 2022. A federal court handed down a major ruling on beauty pageants. Transgender contestants can be excluded from such competitions. The court ruled on Wednesday that the operators of Miss United States of America cannot be forced to allow transgender contestants to compete. The beauty pageant has a rule of only allowing what it calls, quote, natural-born women to compete. A transgender activist sued the company. The court said forcing the company to allow transgender contestants would violate its free speech rights under the Constitution. They said determining who can compete is a form of expressing views on womanhood.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.